Okay, there's the wall. And this is the third installment of our series here with George Webb at Red Pill Expo. And it's flashing, everything's working. So, George, we talked about the idea that the military industrial complex and the deep state intelligence complex and the political complex is just a whole set of subsets of one large complex of people that are orchestrated in very perverse ways through control systems from the top down. I mean, the grand conspiracy. Um, do we really, really think that that's true? What evidence can we bring? What can we say to convince people? Or do you doubt that that is utterly true to that extent?
Well, I think if you look back and, Cy Hirsch was, I've had a couple of conversations with and long conversations, but he basically said, stop connecting dots like Peter Dale Scott and go do some original reporting. And that changed everything. I went, knocked on doors of triple murders and stuff like that to try to find out more truth for myself. But as far as does this stuff exist, Cy Hirsch was the guy who came out and said, there's a counterintelligence program called COINTELPRO, and here it is, New York Times. And there's a program CIA is running called Chaos, which is exactly what I was saying before: disrupt, diffuse and disrupt. Make, the Black Panthers create two wings of it. The Muslim movement create two wings. Have somebody kill Malcolm X. That whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this stuff does exist. Now, I came to him with that story saying, hey, this is the COINTELPRO 2 story. It's basically CIA now working with FBI. And he says, oh, this is too big of a story. It can't be true. I said, Cypress, you're the guy who reported it originally. He starts saying, well, I think you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, you were the guy.
Let me introduce you to the scientific method. We gather information, we form hypotheses, they begin to collect, and then we come up with a theory, and then we go about testing it. It's okay. It's okay to be a theorist.
Yeah. Well, and some people say I'm a coincidence theorist, which I always think is funny. But that's exactly correct with the scientific theory. And I use people like Cy Hirsch as the building blocks of the theory. And usually the building blocks are about 80% source documents, like the COINTELPRO documents, like the Chaos documents. Then I'll layer on at the top, the Pulitzer Prize winners. And then the last little bit, the last 20% is the working theory piece. Because what's important in the crowdsource is to shape the search. If you just say, hey, everybody go out and search about counterintelligence programs, you're going to find out about the British general on
Right, in the jungle.
and it's going to be all over the place. But if I say, look, I'm looking specifically for Pakistani infiltration into the drug rat lines for ships leaving Karachi, going to Mumbai, and then going to Lima, and then moving on through a NAFTA covert, stamp into the port of Los Angeles. And this ship is the Maersk Memphis, and it would have been leaving the port of call about a month ago. Then the search is so much more concentrated and focused, like a lens, that you get productive, what I call metadata from that. There's people who loaded the ship, there's people who wanted the barcode, there's people, customs officers that stamped those containers. It didn't go through Lima, by the way. It went directly to New York and then Charleston. But that's what I try to do is shape the search so that this isn't a big exercise in my theories. It's really more about trying to produce evidence and extend the evidence that's already out
Right,
there.
and that's why you tend to throw things out there from day to day that look more than plausible, and then you're asking people to feed you more information as you go. How do you separate, though, as you go? How do you push things into the position on the table of being fact?
Well, so covert operations, this is the Gary Webb problem. He always used to say, it's like, I'm reporting on covert, Dr. Lyons, I'm reporting on covert operations here. They don't publish this in the New York Times, so it's difficult. But let's say I have a military operations officer who worked the dock in Karachi, and they work in the embassy in Islamabad, and or through the consulate, and they knew where the safe house was in Karachi
Okay.
as the customs house. Now he can tell me, hey, you'd be doing well if you looked at the Maersk Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I can throw then a theory out, and this is exactly what happened. I can throw a theory out saying, hey, look at the Maersk Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
It's not any great theory of mine. I'm just repeating something I've heard the grapevine. I'm not saying it's fact. What I'm saying is I have a semi-reliable source these sources haven't been wrong yet, that's saying that there is depleted uranium and spent fuel coming in on these diplomatic containers. So it's always very specific. Robert David Steele says, George, is a microscope. He's always dealing on some micro issue. He's not a big thinker. He's not an expansive thinker like I am. And he's right. But Robert David Steele is the big thinker. I'm more, I want to prove this case in this instance with this metadata, like almost like a person preparing for a trial, proving something with laying out documents in a case.
Yeah, there's only so much of that you can do. We're always eager for whistleblowers. Why aren't there more whistleblowers? Let's get back to that question. How come there aren't, at least on deathbeds, how come there aren't more people saying, I was compromised and here's how it happened?
Well, if you look at it, there have been. Like Howard Hunt on his deathbed absolutely did say that. Yeah.
Oh, he's a wacky JFK conspiracy theorist.
who was there? George Bush is standing on the front of the Texas School Book Department. I mean, I don't know. And, Richard Nixon's there the night before meeting with LBJ. I try to stay away from these kind of tired, hackneyed subjects, even though people think, oh, you're dismissing 9/11, you're dismissing the Kennedy assassination. I'm not. I agree with that. I just don't want the thing to get dismissed as a conspiracy theory, what I'm talking about, because I'm talking about something that's happening right now on Capitol Hill. So I don't want to kind of go back 50 years or 30 years or 15 years.
And so, I was tracking you a bit more, especially being prompted by Tallulah of Gulag Bound Friendship and past net radio programs. And you were starting to chat with our fellow out of Breitbart.
Lee Stranahan.
Yes, Lee Stranahan. And things were coming to a head, and I was tweeting you guys now saying, I think it's time to just out people. Try to find people that are as much up the food chain as possible, that you got evidence on, and even through anonymous sources, just out them, name their names, show the evidence, tell people what they've done, and put them on the spot. And then, of course, that's about the same time that you guys started to be worried about your existential condition and people threatening you potentially, and then that, of course, bubbled up through a very logical way with the Port Authority and whatever, and New York Times and CNN, trying to dismantle you and give people a false and bad impression of you. So hopefully you'll stay healthy. But what about that? Is that a way to proceed?
Yeah, well, I actually do that. I mean, I say right out that John Podesta and SEIU, Amy Dacey and Harold Hicks and Andy Stern and Brad Bauman is the PR cover, and they've been doing this for 40 years. SEIU's been doing this for 40 years. They're the ones who hire the kill teams. You've got James O'Keefe with Veritas, Bob Creamer saying, with Scott Football, go get some mentally ill Arkansasers to kill these people, or else go get they bring in these operatives like an Alpha Jola from Nigeria, where they come from these war-torn nations. These people are so poor, and they'll do anything to stay in the country, to keep their visas.
What about what came out with the Podesta emails? What about the Wet Works, his email to that Democrat homosexual?
David Bruck?
Yeah, no, it wasn't him. It was that other guy. Maybe I'll name his name in the written piece, where he talks about Wet Works and people associating that with Scalia. Do you think that's a dead end, or?
I don't think it's a dead end. I think all we need to do is just pull the SEIU communications. You know, there's deep dives on Trump, there's deep dives on Flynn, there's deep dives on all these other people who were 2 weeks on the Trump campaign. SEIU has footprints all over Brooklyn. And this isn't something that's new. If there was an investigative force, you could just have a case within 2 days. You know, I've named the names, and these are folks who will get rid of people.
Okay.
You know, and fix elections, that's what we do. That's what, you know, fix elections are us. I mean, Harold Hicks. So I try to name names as much as I can. And, you know, I went to Brooklyn. I had one day there where it was kind of hairy. They wouldn't let me in off the floor, but I got out of that situation.
Well, in a situation like you're in, the more you quickly make public, the better, it seems, because then there's no reason to get rid of you because you're not sitting on something. And secondly, other people can get involved and you have notoriety for self-protection as well.
Yeah, it helped a lot. Actually, I had somebody come over to the hotel and got me off that floor, so it was very, very timely. Johnny T, thank you.
Okay. So what do you think is doable exactly for you and what you're doing that you want to say? How does the prognosis look?
Well, let me just first say armed insurrection, and I know there's a lot of, I've never owned a gun and so forth, and I know there's a lot of people here that are very much, you know, AR-15 owners, and my brother's a prepper, and so I'm very familiar with that whole thinking, you know, sort of more the Alex Jones folks. And let me just say, the readiness exercise 84 that we talked about, they're ready for it. They're completely ready for it with Jade Helm, you know, basically create little prisons out of the big cities and then cut off all the highways and then just one at a time, you know, just move that force around and thin with covert action at night, thin the herd, you know, every night, all covert ops.
So when Jesse Body the Ventura went out around and found the containers behind the chain link fences and also prisons, basically prisons with the razor wire pointed inward and not outward to keep people out, but to keep people in at these various centers around the country. That's all a part of that plan.
All very well thought out. Alex Jones puts all the Army plans on there. And the guy who's in charge of it is General Grange's son. General Grange, who worked with Hillary Clinton and Sid Blumenthal with a company called Osprey Global that did the overthrow of Gaddafi and the attempted overthrow of Assad. And that was called Zero Footprint and Timber Sycamore. They're very well-known programs now. So this isn't, you know, undocumented. And General Grange's son is in charge of that exact program, which is once we pen them up, then go through the deep dive of all their personal communications and then just go in every night and get another 20 or 50 or 100 or whatever we want and process them. At that point, it's processing like you would process chickens or cattle in a slaughterhouse.
It's the systematic operation, well resourced by our own tax money, that Bill Ayers and Bernadine Dorn were scratching their head about, chatting with my old friend Larry Grethwall when they decided, well, you know, the Cubans told them that if they wanted to take over America, you'd have to enslave and, you know, put the people in camps, and then you'd have to kill about 25 million.
And I don't think that's behind. I mean, if you look at the people in the intelligence agency, that's not beyond their thinking. At the top, the directorate level, what I focus on is not an armed resolution. I focus on an intelligence operation, which is very difficult because you're dealing against a 70-year legacy of building up counterintelligence. But it's just truth. Finding that golden thread and keep pulling that golden thread. Keep shaping the search in such a way that it exposes new rat lines. Right. And you build audience that way because people say, this is true. And this CNN thing over here that I'm seeing is kind of like scenery being moved in front of me. And I see it for what it is.
And if you shine the light, the rats go to a potentially decreasing set of hiding spaces.
Yeah, and people say, George is okay with a certain amount of child trafficking. He's okay with a certain amount of organ harvesting. He's okay with a certain amount of teams and red teams. Well, they're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm trying to move it out of the United States first, so that at least they have to go to Canada. At least like the old days, they have to go to Mexico, they have to go to Haiti, they have to go to Puerto Rico for their fun. I'm just trying to move it out of the U.S. initially, because if you corner these people, that's when a lot of people end up getting killed. So I'm always trying to give them an out so they can, we'd have fun weekends in Montreal like we used to, and it's a 5-hour drive. But at least if we can get it out of the country first, then you can start making progress. And I just want to roll it back to the good old days of Allen Dulles, where you used to drive to Montreal to have, sex with the kids, with the orphanages up there, rather than doing it right in New York City. I know that sounds horrible and reprehensible, but it's a start. And you can't eat the whole elephant in your butt.
And there are people that say, why in the world would there be so many people that are pedophiles? But there's a psychology there that people that are drawn to power are excited about having power over people. And that feeds right into the idea of controlling others, and who is easy to control but a child. And I'm sure that there are policemen that would out there that would tell you that bullies, even the police, or whoever bullies that are in gangs, that they kind of get almost like a sexual charge from bullying people and beating them down, things like this.
Well, and I think what people miss in the whole pedogate and so forth is that a lot of times the children are the children of the political enemies of the politician.
Okay.
So it's the ultimate revenge. It's not only did I kill you and had you commit suicide, but I'm also raping your children. And people don't really connect the dots on that, I don't think. They think, these are just, random kids that are being picked off. Well, yeah, there are random kids, the Jeff Epstein kind of modeling school. But then most of the victims are the survivor children of political enemies. And so there's a revenge motive that's been added to it.
What about that? The actual news that came out after the Pizzagate burst with all of the missing children, largely black, in around Alexandria, Virginia. What do you make of that?
Well, organ harvesting is a reality.
Okay.
It's been done in Kosovo in '99.
Proven in Egypt just a few years ago.
Yeah, it's after
the wonderful Arab Spring.
Yeah, right. Well, the whole Arab Spring was a kind of an information operation. Yeah, so what we have is, in Syria, 70,000 cases of organ harvesting, and a live organ harvest because they like the organs as fresh as possible. And Alex Jones had a film of it. It was it was horrible, where one child was watching another child's organs being removed while they're alive, which is, as graphic as you get. But that's Chicago right now, home square. And 2 are killed. And I know this sounds just off the wall, but actually, with children's organs are much more valuable than adult organs, because in doing a heart or doing a liver, you have to get 5% size and weight one direction or the other. So they're killing children in pairs just to make sure, like the 2 little girls that were shot in the head, to make sure that the heart is a fit. Okay. And it's gotten to that point, and we just need to roll it back. Roll it back to Montreal, roll it back to the borders of Mexico. Then we can work on Montreal after that, and Toronto. But right now we can, focus on the U.S.
Well, there's so much that can be slogged through, and there's some of the things that you brought on your videos that we haven't hardly touched upon. And I just wanted to handle more of the people that wanted to find out what makes you tick, where you're getting your information, what your really motivations are, or are you being fed information by operatives of the FSB in Russia, and are you?
Well, I don't know who it was that said all infiltrations begin with a card table. You put out a little card table and you have your brochures, and that's the beginning of all. The Christian Science reading room. It's the old joke in the CIA.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So have I been involved in causes for anti-trafficking when the wall fell in '89? There was a great fear among Czech Americans. I'm not Czech, but my wife was. Still is, or at the time. I was married, and I went with 2 attorneys to Czechoslovakia, and we did meet with Kissinger, and we did express, these older gentlemen, these lawyers in their 60s, expressed concern that these children were being targeted. And if you follow DynCorp with what they did in Kosovo, and what they would do is to take a normal military police officer that's 55, let's say, and they would encourage him to take an 18-year-old girlfriend. And these girls are being starved, so they have no money, so they'll do anything to just eat. And then they encourage them to go to a 16-year-old, and then a 14, and then a 12, and keep trading this to create a market for these people. And that's DynCorp in Kosovo. And this DynCorp has been recreated in Afghanistan, Haiti, or wherever DynCorp goes. DynCorp International goes.
And then we have the very, very scary thing of people such as Laura Silsby, right, involved in the Amber Alert program, and John McCain, John and Cindy, with their little program where they're supposed to be helping somehow with human trafficking. And they're getting a lot of money for a lot of people, and they don't seem to be spending much on anything having to do with looking into what's wrong with human trafficking and what's going on.
Really important for people to understand how the CIA works. They don't like directly attacking and doing a lot of overt stuff. They will do it if they think they can just get away with it, like Pinochet and Chile, with the red teams. But what they really like doing is slowly draining resources, because it's hard to see that. There's so many other news items going on, and draining is hard to see. And one of the things, the way you drain resources from your enemies, is setting up, for instance, Seth Rich, who killed Seth Rich. You have this guy Berkman come out of nowhere and set up this fund, and then he gets $150,000 given to him. And now what does he do? He turns around and makes a website, probably with only 2% of the money, about how everybody's a crazy right-wing lunatic that looking into the murder of Seth Rich.
How about it?
And then 98% is going off to fund some SEIU barbecue.
How about it? Well, that is some hard evidence right there that underscores the reality of what's going on. So I'll leave that for the viewers to digest, and thank George, and pray for the Lord's protection over him and all the rest of us who are trying to find out what's really going on in the world, and help to stick around in a healthier way for a while. God bless, George. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Alan.